Hi, my name is Ken Lasseson. I wrote microbiomeprescription.com and I want to do a update or refresh on odds ratio. One of the ongoing problems I've encountered reading the literature for the last 2 decades has been that a lot of things are very observational. Person doesn't have enough lactobacillus, that's the problem, and becomes a simple cure-all. Give him more lactobacillus or more bifidobacterium. Being a former science teacher and college university instructor of sciences, that is, slightly, it's simplistic, if not, or naive, depending on how you want to term it politically. I have through the years been progressively adding alternative ways of determining who, which bacteria should be adjusted, and in some cases why. The what I deem my current gold standard is using odds ratio. Odds ratio, basically, most people understand well from odds ratio for cancer. If you smoke 5 to 10 cigarettes a day, you have roughly 10 times the odds of developing lung cancer. If you have 2 to 3 packs a day, it's closer to 100 times greater odds of developing lung cancer. If you drink half a dozen beer a day, it also increases your odds of lung cancer, but only increases by about 2 to 3 times as much. So it's not an outrageous amount. Now, because you have high odds does not mean you have it. The classic example is Casey Burns, the comedian who lived well past 100 and smoked cigars every day, many a day. Had no problems with that. So odds ratio indicates the chance of something happening, not that it will happen. It's not deterministic. It's simply saying you have increased odds. Like you have increased odds of dying if you go hiking in the wild without experience. It simply means greater chance. Doesn't mean it doesn't, but often people deteriorate it into, oh, because it never happened to me, the odds are false. No. Odds are good, but odds apply to a population, not to an individual. And if you go into individual disprove, you never not disproving it. It means you don't understand it. Okay, so what I want to start with is what anybody who does a new upload gets automatically. It's an odds ratio for your microbiome, and it simply says, okay, just experiment. But what it does is from the odds ratio, it calculates the one with the highest odds ratio, the highest significance, and then goes and look at all the ones with high significance and then finds out things which are impact the bacteria selected, which is sometimes 5, sometimes 16, sometimes 40 bacteria. Selects the ones which has the desired increase. It says, how do you want to decrease it? In this case, the decision is to decrease because basically it looks like most of any range is like anything that starts at 1, we generally want to decrease. So what we have listed here is all the substances, in which case we have a bunch of probiotic, which will decrease it. Now, the number 6 in front of it is how many of these items it also decreases. In other words, it doesn't just address just one bacteria, it addresses 6 of this bacteria. And similarly, go down to the next one, and guess what? We have the same similar thing, Ramosa sitting there. So the top 3 are all impacted by this one. Then goes here, and some has no substance without adverse effect on other bacteria. So we're going to find something that in literature that affects it in the right way, but doesn't adversely affect anybody else. And then we go down all the way down through all of them, and you can actually get some pretty long lists. But then we have in this particular case, we only have 7 bacteria, which makes the criteria of being adequately statistically significant. I mean, I'm talking about p probability of less than 100 of 1%. So it is only the very significant one to prevent the risk of false positive, and also because of how the odds ratios are being calculated, I want to have that extra buffer for safety. Then down the bottom we have things which are counterindicated, things which may help, but it impacts adversely at least one thing. For example, let's see if we can find a good example. Where okay, blah, 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 blah. Let's take this one. For example, it hurts to puts you in the wrong direction, but helps free. So you may say, okay, I want to shoot the odds, and I think it may help me more than it hurts, or somebody convinced me that is the way to go. But so it goes and enumerates help and hurts, which means if something is hurts one and helps eight, we may well want to consider doing. So that is the CAN report that goes out every time somebody uploads a sample or when it's requested for older samples. So that is step one, which is, hey, this report is there. And this report is different than all the other reports because the focus is on getting healthy. It is not trying to get rid of a particular symptom. Earlier ways of doing analysis looked at saying, oh, these bacteria are associated with this symptom, and therefore we address those bacteria only. That's nice, but unfortunately, it has all sorts of complications to it. For example, yes, you may fix the symptom, but you may inadvertently produce other symptoms. Going for direct healthy based on healthy odds should conceptually avoid the problem. And more importantly, you are rank ordering. You are saying which ones is the ones which are more important because we have the significance here, and we are quite blunt in saying this is the significance calculated from a sample of what I think it's 6,000 different microbiome samples. So it's a good hunk of samples it's calculated from, and we're doing that. Okay, now let's go on to the next thing. Next thing is when you log on, you with the simple interface, and I put this in a simple interface to keep life simple, is you have all your samples. In my case, you have lots and lots of samples. And now you have different ways of selecting things based generally on symptoms or diagnosis. In other words, you're targeting one problem occurring in your microbiome. And think of it as saying, okay, what we're going to do is, in terms of our state or our population, which we as humans live in, I'm going to target people who are stealing stores or doing bank robberies or speeding. Each one of them you can focus on explicitly, get ways of fixing it, but does not mean that the population, the society is criminal free. What we are doing with the odds ratio is saying what we're going to do is we are going to focus on what are the characteristics of a no crime or the lowest crime rate societies and focus on those for our interaction into society rather than trying to address a single type of crime that has occurred. There's a conceptual shift here which um, takes a little bit of thinking about it. We instead of trying to address specific types of crime, we're going to address or try to reduce the crime rate as much as possible by looking at what characteristic of society has low crime rates, and that actually applies worldwide. Um, there, but let's go on. So we have bacteria view of your sample. So if you click here, it will go and compute. And what happens is it will actually look at your sample and then look at another sample from the same lab. Always has to be done against the same lab for comparison. So here is my latest sample. Here is an older sample from 9 years ago. And we have the bacteria tree and we have the original tree still sitting there, which we'll come back to later. But what it does, it goes down and enumerates things. And what it does, it goes and enumerates the percentiles, do nice little charts of where you are, but also gives unhealthy regions. In this case, the very first one, Legionella. Ah, Legionella, you probably know from the news story. It is a nasty disease, and not all members of it are really unhealthy. But what you have is I happen to have one of the highest amount of Legionella in my old sample. It's unhealthy. And voila, basically is saying, hey, that's something I need to focus on. And up at the top, you see the net health impact. So my net health estimate was negative 200. The new one was negative 161. In other words, the general health estimate has improved. It is a alternative way of seeing whether or not you are improving. There is one other way on the side, which I'll show you in a moment, to try to see whether or not your microbiome has improved or not. This is dealing with general health or trying to go for general health. The other way is symptom specific, which means we are focusing on a different aspect, and we may get different suggestions because of the focus. And now here we have some things, and we are seeing, okay, we have some new bacteria has shown up which I didn't have, and those are unhealthy, and we go down and we do that. So if it's blank on one and numbers on the other, it means there's not enough data there, or the data is not reliable enough. Occasionally you will see here we have it on both sides and say, okay, it's unhealthy. Now it's your choice when you see a range here. Do you want to increase or decrease? You can now click here and look at the substances manually. And occasionally you will find something that says healthy on one and unhealthy on the other, and in this case I don't see it. But so you can go down and scroll down and see what are the individual things. Some cases it will indicate that there's additional condition associated with it. And then we have our unhealthy. A healthy. Hey, we have a healthy one, and it is in the right range, which is good. And we have other ones, and another one. We are healthy here, 0 to 82, and it has gone up. So this one has gone up, which is shifting us towards an unhealthy region there. So that is basically it. Now, what it is this is giving informational, unlike the report. It just simply gives the information about it and compares the sample. So what you really want to focus on is ones which are in both of them, and because those are the ones which have persisted and you probably want to try dealing with. For example, this one has gone up, which means perhaps I want to reduce it, etc. So it gives us very simple, and some of these are actually lower odds than the criteria for the report. So the canned report is probably the best. Okay, now, so if you are there and we are at the there, we also, if you know at the top, we have multiple samples. So if we go over to multiple samples, and we see here, and now what we have to do is go and find our old 2603 old biome sample here. So I can have my current sample, my old sample. I click on update, and we wait because it does a mountain of computations to get that. So what we're doing is we're doing comparison between samples. And okay, yes, it works. It just okay. So here we have outside ranges, and it gives all sorts of ways. Most of these, I have put decreasing value on it because there are issues. However, what we have is we sometimes can see, okay, here we have something which has improved. Here has gotten worse. It has improved. So we have more bacteria, less bacteria which are at a lower percentile, more which are a higher percentile. One thing I have done is people have suggested ways you want to look at bacteria. I've added the ways in, and once it's added, I keep it there because I don't know what the definitive answer is. Right now, my best answer is use odds ratio. It's the one which is logically most consistent and has there. Now down below we have the pattern matching. And what we have is looking and matching symptoms to bacteria. We find that 42 symptoms have improved between the old sample and the current, and 0 has gone on worse. In other words, one would say that, okay, the symptom severity has either gone down or has disappeared. All the symptoms comes from anything declared on the old sample or the new sample. So you may not have it in a new sample at all, but it's still included in the comparison. So that gives you the second way of seeing are you getting better or not. The the earlier way, which is right here, is basically gives you the percentile there. So you can go through and you can go and take a look at a different sample. Let's take a year before that and see what happens. And things are automatically computed. Still not, still worse. So things didn't get better. Suddenly, let's go 2023. Let's see how things were there. Still worse. So the latest sample was better than the old samples, but you can also see which bacteria wanders in and wanders out, which is less of concern, but again, it does highlight the bacteria which are persistently problematic. In this case, well, we have made some improvement from 98% out to 80%, so things are improving in the right direction. But we at least take a look at another one where we want to decrease it, and again, it's doing it. So it does not make things absolutely simple. I must apologize for that. What it does do is try to present information in a digestible form for those people who are able to handle it. And worst comes to worst, what you want to do is, if you want to keep things absolutely simple, you just work off the sample, the odds ratio suggestion mailed to you. That is my Let's dumb it down to just tell me what to do, and this tells you exactly what to do and enumerate everything. And if you want to know why or why it impacts that, you just click here, goes over, gives you all the information you want. There it is, and all the cross-reference information to saturate you with information. Keyword is saturate, because that is what many people find it does. It just gives you too much information. And over here again, if you click here, you can go and do it. So unlike most labs, we're not using reference ranges, simply saying, oh, what is abnormal? We are using odds ratio to say what is healthy or unhealthy in terms of population. So it's a different way of looking at it. To me, it's a superior way of looking at it, and it's my preference. But if you don't agree with me, you have lots of other ways of doing it, and everything is sitting there, and you can go and do um, do whatever you want here. So that's basically it. Okay, end of quick video.